Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the claims that there's a number of media pieces come around recently that porn sites, internet online porn sites are the most visited sites on the whole internet, and it's not even, according to these media pieces, it's not even close. You think maybe a prime, 24/7 news site might attract the most, or maybe online sites to purchase common goods, or so. Maybe that would get more. No, porn sites. Now, there's various theories put forward as to why this is. Due to the globalist gender hustling, that gender relations, whether it be marriage or simply intimate relations on dating or whatever, that intimate relations have declined to such an extent that now the real thing is out of reach. So young men are watching porn instead. So I don't know if that's true. It's one theory that's being advanced. Other theories are, as the internet now is available in a lot of third world countries, and a lot of these brown and black men, particularly that come from quite strict, religious or whatever societies, that they like the idea of going online and checking out all these Western white hot blonde chicks that are doing whatever pornographic videos and things. And so it's really the gazillions of people now from the third world that are looking at the young men from the third world looking at these sites and going crazy over dreams and delusions about all these hot white blonde chicks and so on. Anyway, wherever it's coming from, the claim is that they're now the porn sites are the most. Now, if people have got language difficulties, then there's no language really needed, be it verbal or written, to understand what's going on in a porn site. And the porn site is heavily, so these pieces claim that it's men looking at women, in a state of undress and doing, engaged in sexually provocative type movements and so on. Sexually suggestive athletics, or whatever you want to call it. Nonetheless, this is the claim. Now, I don't know whether it's true or not, or where it's coming from. It seems a bit far-fetched to me, so I'm not sure I buy it. Now, coming from a reasonably strict sort of upbringing myself, until I was sort of in senior high school, really, I viewed looking at a girl in a bathing costume as being, and I lived in a beach suburb, so there was 4 or 5 months of the year I was frequently at the beach, and there were girls including sort of fellow students at the school I went to. They're all over the beach, so it wasn't like there was a lack of it. But I viewed that as a bit on the edgy side. And there was a section of the beach that was opened up to topless bathing. And there were some, not schoolgirls, but older women who were doing, when I say older, they seemed old to me. They were probably only 21 or something. And so when my classmates said, "Hey, let's go down the other end there and look at the chicks bathing topless," I felt quite guilty going along, as if I was doing something that was, it was smut on steroids and this sort of thing. Such was my attitude. Now, that changed over time, but even when as I got older and I was invited, people, you go to someone's house and they'd pull out the blue movies, the X-rated, triple X-rated movies to look at, and it was back in the day, it was titles like, I don't know, Debbie Does Dallas and those sorts of things, and I never thought much of them. They didn't I didn't look at them and go, wow, that's really making me horny or something. It seemed a bit cheap and tawdry to me. But that's only me. I mean, what do I know? Now it was different in a personal physical situation where there was sort of me and her, me and her in a room. That was different than it was an intimate sort of act between two consenting adults, and I saw it quite differently in that sense. But the idea of watching someone else or looking at someone else or couples and looking at a porn, I mean, there was no internet then, so that sort of porn was being delivered through magazines such as Playboy at the tamer end, and then there were other magazines. Remember this friend of mine used to get in, Hustler or something, things like that. So the internet's a fairly new thing, and the third world having access to the internet similarly is fairly new. So it possibly doesn't surprise me that from these repressed third world societies that they're able to look at these again the blonde chicks and so on, and on the internet and get off on that. So I can understand that. So it's quite possible it comes from that. But on the other side of it, in terms of, some people suggested that particularly the more Christian elements have suggested, well, this thing about people looking at porn sites, if indeed it is straight white Christians, and I'm not sure it is, but if it is, then it's an indication of the moral degradation of society, as much as people are logging onto that sort of stuff or looking at it, and also the women who were engaging in that form of sexual exhibitionism. That too is part of a wider issue of moral degradation in the West, and loss of Christian values and so on. I'm not sure I buy that either. The moral degradation, you could certainly argue that, but is that a byproduct of 30, 40 years of gender hustling by globalist, very well-funded globalist agitator cabals and propaganda outlets and gender studies, classes? Is it that, or is there something else going on here? So, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But now, on the other side, there are people we know who have have younger children, like school-age children, and so one of them's got a first-year high school girl, and she's rather precocious, and she and her friends, they caught them looking at porn, as in porn, erect male appendages and things like that, and scenes of guys with hard-ons about to engage in the intimate act and this sort of stuff. And they were looking at that, and they didn't realize, the parents didn't realize how easy it was for anybody, young people or not, to get onto the internet and be able to see what I would regard as graphic images, again, of what we'd have called years ago people's private parts. Again, erect appendages and women engaging in masturbation with vibrators, those sorts of things. Now, is that suitable for 12-year-olds, boys or girls, 12-year-olds to consume? I would argue not. And again, this was something that wasn't available in generations previous, whether it's the advent of the internet or that standards have broken down, something that, you put that sort of stuff up years ago, you've been prosecuted for it. I think it is pornographic, and it is unsuitable certainly for 12-year-olds to consume, would be my view. Now, but this is widespread. It's not just that was this one instance here. Any 12-year-old can access that sort of porn. Is it at the extreme graphic end of porn? Well, maybe not, but it's still porn. So now, given that LGBTQ porn is now being distributed in junior schools across many areas of the Western world, is this a big deal? Because if they're introduced to it as really at primary school, they could be 10 years old or something younger, and then they get onto the internet, because everyone's got the internet now and everyone's got a computer or a phone, and then they can get onto that graphic images and look at that, and whereas hitherto they couldn't, the price of magazines that had that sort of graphic porn in it was quite expensive, well beyond the means of 99% of children and even many adults. But they were able to, they're now able to access that sort of graphic material without needing to go and buy. And to buy those sort of magazines, you had to prove that you were 18 or over, whereas now anyone can access it on the internet without any need to prove age or so on. And again, there is no, it really it irritates the crap out of me that the commentators will complain about disinformation, supposed or alleged disinformation on the internet, but make no effort to close down this graphic porn or the graphic images of animals being tortured and tormented and torn to pieces. They don't seem to care about any of that, which I think is important, and instead complain about and whinge about any opinion that doesn't suit mass migration or race and gender hustling and so on. Now I'm coming to the other side. How does it affect? Has it lowered standards to the point where intimate relations is just a casual consumer item? Now it has no meaning, as it has no meaning within marriage, because the marriage situation's been largely destroyed or at least assaulted from all sides. So there's that. And also the idea of the amount of young women who become, if you like, part-time call girls in order to have to pay their college fees, for example, and that creates a casualness about it. And even going back years, women I know in their 50s and 60s today, and they say how they openly and aggressively went after the lecturer and whatever they were studying, some bullshit sociology course. These were the days before they were handing out participation trophies to every minority, so you actually had to make some sort of effort to pass the tests and do your assignments. So they didn't want to do the work or knew they were too dumb to pass the test. So these women were, I was pretty hot looking. I looked all right in a short dress and a plunging neckline. So I went after the lecturer and I fucked him a few times or did a few hand jobs and hey bingo, hey presto, I got my degree with honours and this sort of stuff. This was widespread in the and there's not a woman I know who, again, straight woman, not a woman I know who doesn't fess up to having fucked the lecturer at university in order to get a pass, and who equally fesses there is no way she would have passed unless she'd fucked the lecturer. So there's that, and the amount of young women who are again, engaging in sort of part-time call girl, hooker, whatever you want to call it, in order to pay for their. So I think that the change in the cost of living and the change in the dynamics of how you pay for things, the availability of well-paying jobs, this is also fed in a wider loop back in on itself, where people say, women go, hey, I can trade, sex for power and sex for money, and so why wouldn't I? Because if I don't do it, I'll have neither of those things. I want both power and money, so this is what I have to do. And there's women I've known who've become professional call girls. A girl I went to school with, for goodness sakes, she was in my history class or something like that, and she was no genius, and she was also quite lazy. So, but she wanted the finer things in life. She wanted the nice holidays, the brand name clothing, and she wanted all the nice things. There's no way she was going to get it herself. The only way she could get it is by marrying it, or so she became a full-time professional, mistress to rich men, and did very well out of it. So, and when I met her, this is after school. I met 10, 15 years after we were out of school and college, whatever it was, and so I met her and she had this real estate portfolio and diamonds and jewelry worth gazillions and driving a Maserati and so on. And she hadn't done any work. She just just fucked a bunch of wealthy guys to get it all. I thought, well done. And other women that I've known, their wealth has come from one woman I knew who was a sort of a mistress to a rich guy who ended up, buying her an apartment gifting her and buying her an apartment in one of the wealthiest postcodes in Australia, and giving her this and giving her that, making sure she had very well paid employment and all this sort of thing, and all through that. And so there's a huge amount of this that goes on. There's and the attitude around it is, there's a young woman, she'd be in her early 20s, and just very casually sort of asked, well, did I want to fuck her, because she wants to know what it's like to fuck an old guy, which isn't particularly flattering, but anyway, there you go. But she was, you're in pretty good shape. I just want to know what it's like to fuck an old guy, all your experience. But the way she said it, I mean, she's like 20, 21 years old, and she said it with such a casualness and such a, oh yeah, hey yeah. Do you want to have a hamburger, or do you want to, get a Coca-Cola at the shop or so? It was done so casually and almost dismissively in a way. And so this is I think a wider issue where, because of the decline in marriage, the decline in the, even an element of sanctity of intimate relations. For example, the amount of people that have told me that when they're fucking somebody, they're actually thinking of someone else. So the girl may be fucking, Billy Bob or Jimmy Jack from around the corner, but while she's fucking the guy, she's actually dreaming of Brad Pitt or some Hollywood movie star. And the same goes for guys. Well, no, I may screw Billie Jean, be screwing Billie Jean, but I'm really thinking of that hot piece of ass I saw on the porn site, or that hot chick down the road. I'm thinking of her, and that to me is a big breakdown. It certainly was important to me to be into and thinking of the woman I was having an intimate session with, not to think of someone else, but to think of her and what we were doing as a couple in that intimate moment or intimate relationship. But this is not how it is. So I think there's been a breakdown in people now are just props. In terms of intimate acts, are just props that are just there while you think of someone else, and that seems odd to me. But it suggests a breakdown in the intimate connection, the intimate cycle of marriage, of any sort of sanctity, that you're actually going to screw someone you think is really hot and you like, and who you assume like you like them. Not the idea is get drunk and screw anybody. I think there's been a breakdown generally across a number of fronts. Does this mean that porn has if you like, filled the vacuum? I mean, on the basis of porn, you don't need to, no one needs to make the effort to have a relationship with anybody. The relationship is with the image on the computer screen. So that too feeds back into this idea of relationships human relationships, human interaction have become so removed from the needs and requirements of the social cohesion and to be part of a society or part of a group, that it's been replaced by, if you like, this third party, which is the delusion of a relationship, given that it's accessed through, again, cyberspace. So I think there's multi-levels of breakdown. Do I believe that porn is the most visited sites? I can't visualize it personally. I can only see it as being possible if you look at all these brown and black people in the third world who get off on looking at blonde chicks doing porn vids. That's the only way I can see it. In terms of the Western societies doing it, I wouldn't think so. But equally, you look at sort of workplaces now where if a guy asks a girl out, on a date, that is, that he can be accused of harassment or I don't know what else, stalking or something, accused of something. After all, he's a straight white male fascist Nazi. Damn, he's Hitler. And so then the whole power of the radical activist lesbians in the gender studies lesbians coming out of the HR department, and maybe he'll get fired or lose his job, or it'll go on his record that he's an evil sexual harasser, something like that. So work was a place where people would meet. Also, the idea of social clubs, things like that, that's gone, because people can now go back, go to their computer screens, and they can connect to the whole world, news sites, hobby sites, special interest sites, that sort of thing. So they don't need groups of people or other people in the same way that they once did. But I suppose the sexual urges and so on remain, and maybe the porn sites are a way to express that in a private setting. But I don't think it's white Western men that are frequenting the porn sites. Certainly not in the quantities that are suggested. But I'd be interested in your views. You've been with tacit state, your pushback, Chandler. Thank you for listening.